I get teased about having a couple of credentials after my name. And I love to learn. I'm committed to being a lifelong learner. One of the professional designations I have is the RICP, which stands for Retirement Income Certified Professional. Retirement Income Certified Professional. Because it really became a concern to me as I was reading and listening to clients who were saying, you know, I want to be able to retire, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to. I don't know that I'm going to outlive my money. Just as Lou was talking about a moment ago, that's very common today. In fact, I'll get a little bit more in just a moment. So it became so much of a passion for me. I wasn't expecting it, but we ended up creating a video series. So both from my research as a retirement income certified professional, but also just in being in practice for over 35 years, finding out what is it that people are thinking of, and especially interviews with people who have retired. What are they saying? What do they wish that somebody would have told them before they retired? So that's what I'm going to share with you. You have in your handouts a distillation. And we created this video series called The Top 10 Planning Mistakes That Will Keep You From Retiring Well, and what you can do about them. So I'm only going to have time today to hit on 4 of them, but I invite you to take a peek there, or you can go on to, again, our website, wealthlegacygroup.com, and our videos are there. It's completely free, and it's just a great place to go and just kind of check up, see how you're doing. But let's talk about what the issues are. And I'm here to say that Americans are in trouble. And I don't just mean, you know, politically and morally and relationally and physically. I mean fiscally. They're fiscally in trouble. And the true reality is most Americans will not be able to retire ever, or they will not be anywhere close to what their expectations were. Even if they're working with amazing people to prepare to help them sell their companies, like Peter and Helena, or my friends from Orange County, who are here to be with us, who help business owners get ready and sell their companies. But anyway, the reality is most Americans will not be able to retire. So what can we do about that? Well, this was a sobering. Bankrate publishes things about if you want interest rates and stuff, so this is a great resource. But they had an article in 2018 of just how many people would be prepared if they needed $1,000 for an unexpected emergency. Well, check this out. 39%, less than 40%, would be able to cover that. $1,000. 60%, 61% would not even have the $1,000. They'd have to either get it from their credit card, they'd have to borrow it from some other place, or get it from relatives, friends, or charity, or take out a personal loan. For $1,000? So when you're in that place, is it any surprise that people are not going to be able to retire? Here's some numbers. 21% have nothing saved for retirement. This is according to a 2018 study. That 21%, 1 out of 5 Americans, have nada set aside for retirement. 31% have saved less than $5,000. 8% on average have $84,000. But this is probably the scariest number to me. 11% weren't even sure what they had. Does that, yeah, I know, Jill, right? Yikes, like, holy cow. And when I first saw that number, I thought, well, I think there's some millennials behind this somehow. Now, just yesterday, I read an article. Do you know that 1 out of 4 millennials has over $100,000 saved? I was shocked. I was like, good for them. We had 2 of them, mainly because they had a great mom. They're probably part of those 1 out of 4. But anyway, millennials are not to blame on this. So us boomers, 33% have less than $25,000 in savings. 78% Americans say they're either extremely worried or somewhat worried about running out of money once they get down the road. And 2/3 fully believe that they'll never be able to retire. They're going to have to work not because they want to work, but because they have to work. So my goals for my little part of this thing today is I'm going to share 4 of the top 10 planning mistakes that will keep folks from retiring well. What are some possible solutions? How do we address those issues? And then also, we won't raise hands, but some of this might apply to you, because I can tell you some of the things that was interesting that came from the research applied to us. For somebody who plans to live to 147, I mean, that's just my life goal, you know. I want to see a new century come in. But how do you plan for retirement when you're going to go, you know, please God, get out to 147? But from this, my own research said, you know what? In 10 years, I want to have our home paid off. So we sat down, figured that out. What would it take to have our home paid off in 10 years? And some other things as well as a result of doing the study. So I'm hoping, I would love to have at least a few of you walk away from today going, you know what? We're going to sit down this weekend and talk about this. And sit down with your significant other or yourself or give us a call and we'll kind of go through this together and talk about what would be some great things for you to decide about today, whether that's 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, or longer. So, what's the number one mistake? This is interesting. The number one mistake. Not having a written plan. Would you watch the Super Bowl if there were no yard markers? Like, hey, there's a big scrum of people on the field. Are they scoring? I don't know. They're just moving around on the field. I can't. No, we probably wouldn't do that. But when I asked the question of individuals, I was literally just on the phone with a gentleman, what is this, Friday? So it was on Tuesday. I've been referred in to a gentleman who, bless his heart, he's in the construction business. 14 million in sales last year, right down the lane. But anything out of that lane, no answers. So I said, okay, well, I'll call him Tom. That's not his real name. I said, okay, Tom, let's just start on 4 how questions. Okay? And he said, great. I said, so how soon do you plan to retire? He said, well, I want to right away. Next month? December? I mean, so the first how question is how soon? Specifically, what's the month? What's the year? You know what the most common answer is? 10 years from now. 10 years from now. You know why? This is fascinating. Because 10 years alleviates the guilt that most people have about not having enough money for retirement, and they feel like they can make up whatever the number is they need to make up. So 10 years is a nice number. Now you may be talking to them 10 years from now and they'll give you the same answer. Well, maybe 10 years from now. But so first question is how soon? Second how question, how much? This is usually where it gets really interesting and uncomfortable on the other side of the table. How much? How much are you going to need specifically? Pre-tax, post-tax, don't care. Monthly, annual, don't care. We'll drill into that, that's fine. But give me a number. And most people can't answer those 2 questions, the 2 how questions. And there's a third one. How many, meaning how many buckets are you going to have? Well, there's hopefully Social Security. It will be there. Trust me, when they say that Social Security is going bankrupt, that's not actually accurate. It just means that there will not be enough money coming in to pay out the benefits that are projected. So right now we're looking at 2032 for the time that Social Security is supposed to be bankrupt. It won't be. It just means that there's going to be a reduction. Either they're going to have to reduce the benefits out, and unfortunately the average benefit is about $1,400 a month. And so those are the people that will potentially be hurt the worst. But what will happen is they'll probably have some other phase outs and other things. Medicare is a little bit scarier. That one really is getting pretty low because they've been borrowing from it and not replacing it. But anyway, how many? So how many buckets? There'll be some Social Security. Maybe there's some money in a 401k or Roth. There's some new changes. We just had a new bill called the Secure Act that just passed. If you're, we can talk about that if you want to another time. But the main thing is you need to have buckets of money, including not just money that's taxable, but right now, for example, is the best time for you to be putting money into after-tax programs. Why? Because right now, we're probably in the lowest tax rates we're going to ever see for most of us in this room. So for the next 5, 6 years, Trump's going to get through this. I don't care if you like him or not. The fact is the market already assumes that he's going to be reelected. And I mean, if you want to see a disaster on the market, if he lost, it'll be catastrophic. But the market has already assumed he's going to win. And so we've got another good 5, 6 years at least, and we're going to see lower tax rates. But the House doesn't have to even vote. But December 31st, 2025, boom, income tax rates are going back up automatically. So the next 6 years, a great way to put money away into stuff that grows with no tax, that's after-tax contributions, and then when it comes out with no tax. So don't be putting everything into pre-tax plans. You're missing the big picture. Have some of both. Actually have multiple buckets. Now, here's the other one. How long? So how much, how soon, how many, and then how long you need the money. Well, RJ, doesn't that depend on how long I'm going to live? Yeah, that's true. But the point is, you're probably going to live a whole lot longer than most people are thinking they're going to live. So I want you to use the Steve Covey, begin with the end in mind. So let's start with this. So take out your paper, have something to write on. First of all, you got to get clear on what does retirement look like to you. What does retirement look like to you? By that I mean, how do you define it? Are you going to stop working completely? Some will. That would be just disastrous for me. I can't picture it. Maybe you're going to volunteer, spend more time volunteering. Great. Maybe you're going to keep working, not because you have to, but because you want to. Maybe it's going to be something else. I've got a wonderful new prospective client as a referral from someone who's here in this room, and bless her heart, she's mid-70s. She looks like she's 58. And she's probably going to sell this company, and when I asked her, what are you going to do next? She said, well, I want to go, there's a couple other companies I want to start. Cool. That's great. Love it. So here's option number one. So is this you? Lifestyle option number one. You're going to spend less than you spend currently. Your life is going to be simpler. You'll be hopefully in good health. You'll have little to no debt. Does that sound like the lifestyle that you see for yourself for retirement? So if so, and I doubt it, but if so, you want to have about roughly 75% of your current income now. So when you retire, when you have that, this is when I'm going to retire and this is how much I need, here's a helper for you. You'll need 75% of what your income is now from all sources. Okay? Now, but what if you say, golly, I think we're probably going to be doing what we're doing now, spending what we're spending, keep it about the same. Lifestyle, I don't want to downscale. I want to kind of keep it, we're doing okay right now. So hobbies, yeah, got some. Want to maybe even add a couple. We want to volunteer some. We want to spend more time with our kids or grandkids. We'll have little to no debt. Well, how much then, if that's what you visualize for yourself, how much of your income now do you need then? 85%. On average, 85% again, got to factor taxes in there and such as well, but 85% is the target. Now, what about the third choice? And that is, there are some folks, Vivian, my wife, my lovely wife over there, knows this person very well, and when she gets to a certain age, I mean, she's planning on spending way more than what she's spending now. She's already spending quite a bit now as well. But her plan is to, hey, let's take off the brakes and really go for it. Have a pretty good sized estate, multiple properties, planning on doing a lot more traveling. Well, how much do we need there? 105%. So there are maybe a few in this audience as well. I'm not going to name names. And just because I look at you doesn't mean that you're who I'm talking about. So don't get nervous. I don't want to get a nasty email later on. But yeah, so you might need, in fact, an even higher percentage. But that should be a starting point for you, is to get very specific, very granular. Have a written plan as well. Put it down in writing where you can review it. That's why you need to look at your own specific situation. And whether that's with us sitting down for a complimentary consultation or whether it's somebody else that you trust that knows, that's why you need to get very granular and specific about your situation. But I hope that it's just trying to give people a starting point, Mike, to know, okay, for me, I don't even have an idea about how much I should be targeting. Then we have to also back into it. This is where sitting with smart guys like Chad over there to kind of calculate the numbers and figure out, okay, I'm putting this much away in my retirement accounts. It's going to grow this much. It's going to generate this much in income. That's one of the things that's so important about what Lou said, and I'll touch on it here in a minute, is the most dangerous years to retire. So I'll get there in a minute. Actually, before I run past that point, so this is the important reason why, since we're going to live a whole lot longer than you imagine, I'll show you in a minute what the numbers are. That's why you need to keep real estate in your portfolio. That's why you need to keep equities in your portfolio. I'm not saying to have 100% there, but for those that think, oh, I'm 65 or my folks are 70 or 75 and they need to get rid of the equities and the real estate in their portfolio. No. Now, that's why you want to sit down with Alan Niven and talk about real estate, what's the highest and best use. So maybe you've got this part of your portfolio in real estate, but it could be over in a much better part producing more through another form of real estate or evaluation. That's where Alan brings so much value to the conversation about what's the highest and best use for real estate in a portfolio. But you got to have some the rest of your life. So you need to be talking with Jim over there too. And so making sure you've got conversations, Lisa over there, talking about having real estate in your portfolios for the rest of your life. Okay, what's the second biggest failure? Procrastination. Oh, don't talk to me about that. Let's talk about that tomorrow. No. Procrastination. Putting off to tomorrow what you really need to be doing today. Americans it's estimated, are saving half of what they need to be saving. Half. Because we're going to live so much longer and because returns are being squeezed down, we need to be saving more than ever before. 17 to 20% per person per year is the new estimates. As I mentioned, only 40% of Americans they're on Social Security, their average benefit $1,400 a month. And when I was chatting with this person I got referred into, Tom, earlier this week, the fellow who's in the construction business, and he wants to retire, and he's got a beautiful home paid for, he's got some rental properties all paid for, generating income. I said, well, so he told me what he's spending his money on, or how much free money he had. I said, well, where are you spending the money? He goes, oh, I don't know, I do have a girlfriend. She likes to go out. Okay. Point of it is figuring out where does the money go. Is a good starting point. We'll touch on that in a minute. But the main thing is we want people to get positively addicted. There's negative addictions. We hear about that all the time. But you know what? There's positive addictions as well. And one of the things we want our kids to learn, as well as us, is to be positively addicted to saving money and accumulating money. So, give you a quick example. Age 25, putting away $400 a month. That's a pretty good millennial right there by there. 40 years at 7%, they're going to have over $1 million accumulated with that $400 a month. How about if they just waited 10 years to 35? Which is pretty common, actually. I'm going to get around to saving, but I've got so many things. I got a car to pay for. I've got a school debt to pay for. We're wanting to buy a house. I want to get married. I'm going to wait a while before I start putting money away. Okay. So just 10 years later, that 35-year-old, same $400 a month, same 7% growth rate, but now only have 30 years to target for. How much will they have? We had over $1 million for the 25-year-old. What would you guess the 35-year-old would have? 750, $500,000? Less than $500,000. So the difference is this. You got to inspect what you expect. So if you're looking at being positive with your money, you got to figure out where your money's going now. It's just like most Americans say, if you ask them what their New Year's resolution is, what's one of the most common New Year's resolutions? Lose weight. Yes. I was waiting for the guys to say it, but okay, the ladies have to lead us through this as well. Okay, no, that's right, losing weight. Where does it start with losing weight? You got to get on the scales. You got to get on the scales. You may not like what you see, but you got to start somewhere. Well, and you inspect what you expect. Okay, so where do you spend your money? That's the first thing. You got to track your expenses. You don't have to go crazy about it, but even if you just did it for 30 to 60 days, just know where your money's going. Maybe you're going to look at your credit card statements. Maybe you're going to look at, again, your bank statements. But where's your money going? And one of the biggest failures of a budget, people don't track their cash. They spend $100 here, they spend $200 there, they spend in cash. Great. You won't spend as much that way, but you got to track it if you're going to know where your money's going. Pay yourself first, have money that's automatically transferred out of your accounts that goes right into someplace, what I call the broom closet, the broom savings. What do I mean? What rate of return did you get on your broom last year? How many people have a broom in their house, in the closet? Multiple brooms? Okay. What rate of return did you get on your broom last year? Zero. Did you care? No. You need a broom. Same thing. You need cash. You don't care what the rate of return on it is. You need cash because Cash is important. Okay, so budget. Cut expenses. I mean, again, there's simple things that can be done. Participate in pre-tax plans or set up your own retirement plan. If you're a one-person show, you can have this year $62,000 that you can set aside pre-tax if you're 50 or older. You got to catch up in there. So pre-tax, not a bad way to start. You can use some of the hybrid insurance products that look really more like a 401k. You put money into it after tax, it grows with no tax, and then when the income comes out with no tax. It's a very clever tool. We've got clients last year, some of the biggest cases we've ever worked with in our lives, $250,000 a year. One family's putting away $200,000 a year. A lot of clients putting away $100,000 a year for the next 6 years, pre-tax or after tax, to let the money grow with no tax, and then when it comes out with no tax. So now's the time to be putting away, again, money into things that are going to grow, and when they come out, there's no tax. By the way, that 35-year-old, if they were going to end up at the same place and have $1 million at the end of 30 years, instead of putting $400 a month, got to put away $925 a month. Sanjeev. Sorry, is what? HSA is a pre-tax, but again, that's a place to, a health savings account is a place that you can set money aside. But again, the point being that, and that's good because then you can use it to pay for health expenses down the road on a non-taxable basis. So yes, HSAs I'm a big fan of. You don't get to put as much away, too much away. There are some other options, but yes, if you're going to set money away pre-tax, that's a great place to put money away. But again, the point is don't just be putting money away pre-tax. Be putting money away also after tax. Here's the deal. In terms of positive addiction, if you use cash, you'll spend 12 to 18% less, was what the study shows. So with procrastination, that's the second biggest issue. What's the third one? The third biggest mistake, has to do with how long you're going to live. How long you live. I ask people all the time, how old are you going to live to be? And you know what most people respond? No, that's just me. They say, well, my parents lived to, or my grandparents lived to. I say, well, that's all well and good, and not to be impolite, but I don't care about your parents or grandparents. That's nice to know. But how old are you going to live to be? Because normally, they're wrong. In 1911, so not that long ago, the average life expectancy was 53 years. Thanks to the work of people like you gang over there, people are living a whole lot longer, and now living to 78 is the average life expectancy from birth to end. At least end on this planet before there's a whole other place that we can talk about. So nearly 25-year increase in life expectancy just over the last century. And that's just men. How about women? Even better. Even better. So women life expectancy in 1911 was 54. And now it's over 82. That's the average life expectancy for women. But here's the other number. You know the old joke, the longer you live, the longer you live. Well, that's what we want to do, is we want to keep people living longer. They are living longer. In fact, if you took a cohort of folks that were 70, so in your packet is the latest and greatest numbers for 2020. So here's the new federal income tax rates. There's capital gains tax rates. On the second page, on my left, your right, if you look on the back there, it says a uniform lifetime table, and you'll find that number 70. Now what that means is that if you had a cohort, if you had 1,000 people that were age 70, I just lost half the audience because now you're looking at your forms. Okay, stay back with me here. Yeah. Ashley's telling me I got 5 minutes left. Oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this? Ashley's our new wonderful marketing and event coordinator. We've had such great experiences with the best people in the world. Even when they leave, they're still part of the family. I'm over there at our at our family. But if you take that 1,070-year-olds, look at them again when they're 97.4, half of the group is dead, but half the group is still alive at 97.4. Because again, the longer you live, the longer you live. The things that would have taken you out prior to age 70, you get through that, cool, you're there. So the point of the story is this, 97.4. How many of you, when you came in here today, planning on living to at least 97.4 or longer? Not everybody. So, point of it is your money's got to last a whole lot longer than most people expect. So that's one of the things that we find in terms of the biggest mistakes that people make is that they don't understand how long they are probably going to live. So that's why, again, you need to own real estate and equities in your portfolio, not just simply bonds, annuities, and cash. There's nothing wrong with them, but they need to be in balance or, again, using an approach like we have with Lou. So, okay, Dr. Craig Venter, who with Human Longevity. We also have a not-for-profit that Alan and Bill Exeter and I co-founded, as I mentioned, 11 years ago. And so we have an event coming up February 17th. I believe it's the Thursday after. Yeah, and I'll be interviewing an amazing couple. And by the way, there's a flyer on your tables. There's some flyers about that event. But I interviewed Dr. Craig Venter. He and his business partner at the time mapped the human genome. So if that name sounds familiar, that's the guy who did it. And you know what he said in my interview with him? He's a fascinating guy. Ego as big as this whole block, but I mean, fascinating, fun guy. He said within 1 to 2 generations, we will choose for ourselves stasis. Meaning that we will choose how long we are going to live. We're going to be at a point where we can choose when we're going to die. Now that's out there a little bit, but probably not far off because of with the map and the human genome and what they're coming up with. So, third biggest mistake, being unrealistic about how long you're going to live. And then the last one is volatility, and Lou did a great job talking about that. It's about not just the accumulation of assets, but the decumulation of assets. That's a term you may not have heard of. There are a lot of financial advisors out there that are talking about how do you accumulate assets. Very few of them, as in like 1 to 2%, first of all, very few have gone through the rigors of becoming a retirement income certified professional or some of the others that are specialized in that area. But the reality is that it's about what your assets do when you start taking them out. What are the 4 most dangerous years for retirement? The 4 most dangerous years. Actually, great guess, but it's actually, Lisa's right, it's after you retire, but it's also the first 2 years before you retire. The first 2 years before you retire and the first 2 years just after you retire. Because what happens if 2008 comes back again and you've just started or you're getting ready to start taking retirement and now you've just seen your portfolio drop by 40%? That's why it's so critical to have something like Lou was talking about in the portfolio so that you've got a parachute there. And that's why you can start taking out 5 or 6% per year. What the typical study says you take out 3 to 4%. That should be maximum. But that's where having something, so if you don't lose on the downside, you keep on the upside. That's why you can get through that. But the 4 most dangerous years are the 2 years before you retire and the first 2 years after you retire. Let me just quick run through the numbers here. I looked to update these for 2019. They're not even out there yet, so I'm still stuck with some of my December 31st, 2018 numbers. But the average return of the S&P since '57 is just under 8%. And what's interesting, in the 50s, you earned 19%. And then the next century, or the next 10 years, you earned 1% per year on average. So the S&P index return for the last 30 years has been about 10%. Cool, that's great. Barclays bonds, about 4.5%. What is the average individual investor? What are their earnings? 3.8%. Not 10, not even the bond return of 4.6, but an average of 3.8%. Why? Because of the impact of losses on their portfolio. Because they didn't anticipate what was going to happen. Lou talked to us about what it takes to recover when you've lost money. So the impact of volatility is incredibly important. I'll wrap up with this slide. I know it's hard to read. This is a client who's an engineering client. We compared his S&P index versus using a Beacon portfolio. So at the end of 20 years, taking out 5% per year on average, they would have taken out $840,000 at the end of 20 years. 840. And their million would be worth $1 million. $1,045,000. So at the end of 20 years, he would have $1 million, which is where we started. and would have received about $41,000 a year of income because of the volatility. But at the end of 20 years, $42,000 a year. At one point, that portfolio would have gone down actually to $500,000. That's it. And averaged income $26,000 from starting at 50 would have been down at one point at $26,000. As opposed to the Beacon approach, where instead of having minus years, and in 2008, instead of having a minus 38%, it was up almost 10% net of all fees. And so at the end of 20 years, there would have been $2.1 million left in the bucket instead of $1 million, and there would have been $84,000 a year average income instead of $41,000. So that's the impact of volatility on a portfolio and on income streams, especially once you've retired. That's why it's so critical. So which bucket are you going to pick? Bucket number one, $840 of income, $1 million left in the bucket. Or bucket number two, twice as much, $1.7 million of income and $2 million left in the bucket. So, summary. 4 things. We've looked at 4 of the 10 retirement planning mistakes. Again, the trifold has got all 10 of them. And you can go to our website and watch the videos for all of them. You've got to know the answers to the 4 how questions. You got to start today. It doesn't matter so much the amount of money you start setting aside today, just the fact that you do it. Getting that positive addiction to money, to saving. Underestimating how long you're going to live. The third one, and then also not addressing or having strategies in place to address the volatility in your portfolio. It's not just the accumulation, it's preparing for the decumulation of those assets. And so I hope you just jotted down for you what things you're going to look at this weekend to think about for your own situation. And what do you do differently as a result of today? It has become a passion project. So seriously, if you want to just brainstorm, have a second opinion on your situation, you can call us up, get a hold of our staff. We'll sit down for a 20-minute consultation and just chat about what you're trying to accomplish. There is a survey. I'd love to get your feedback on my particular part of the presentation. You'll also be getting an emailed survey asking you what you thought about today's event, about all 4 of our speakers.